Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today's video, as it says, I'm going to be talking about lessons from the book of Esther. So before I get into this video, I just want to give it background, everything. So for context, I actually read the book of Esther in June, but for some reason I had just been holding back making this video. I don't know why, essentially, but I just have been feeling oh well, maybe I should wait. Someone was telling me to wait before I make this video, but I guess I couldn't wait anymore. So here we are. I'm actually really excited to make this video. I couldn't get ready faster. That's how excited I am to do this video. So if you're new here, welcome to the family. Please join by subscribing and share this video. Give me a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Before we actually get into it, I just want to put it out there that if I come here on my channel to talk about God, to talk about the Bible, basically just me coming here to talk about this is not me sitting on a self-righteous pedestal. I'm equally struggling in my own way, and doing this is helping me grow and helping me also improve. So that's even what's making it better for me to do. Okay, so overview of the book of Esther. Basically, the book of Esther is one of a very exciting book in the Bible, actually, and this is not my first time reading the book of Esther. I think I had read it before when I was younger, but I think the book of Esther has 9 chapters and I finished it in 2 days. I did 2 chapters per day and I think I finished it in 4 days or thereabouts. So that's another tip, or let's say tip number 1 on how to improve your Bible study. It's always good to not rush. I feel when I started reading the Bible for the first time when I was younger, I used to want to finish a whole book of the Bible in a day. I remember I read the book of Revelation in a whole day, and not only did I not understand anything, I didn't internalize anything. So it was I was reading a novel, and for someone who's an avid reader, I think that was also part of the problem, because my novels, I finished them in 2-3 days, and that's when I have other commitments. If I have nothing I'm committed to, I can finish a novel in a day if I'm really serious about it. So reading the Bible is not reading a novel. Actually have to take time to internalize whatever you read. So that was what I applied as I was reading this book of Esther. I tried to read 2 chapters a day and try and internalize it and try and understand what the message was really all about in that chapter before I moved on. In the introduction to the book of Esther, we see the king of Susa in that time, King Xerxes. So as he was with all his men in the court, obviously he's excited. He's okay, go and get me my wife, I want to show her off. She's a beautiful woman. So he sends for Queen Vashti and she refuses to come. She's probably carried away with the festivities. So on the message getting to her, she just shrugs it off and then obviously I can actually picture this. Imagine okay, the king has finished telling all his people, all his guys, that you guys need to see my wife, she's so beautiful, in fact order for my wife to come, and then everybody's waiting to see this beautiful wife the king has finished boasting on, and she refuses to come. I'd be upset. So obviously now the men were okay, this is an insult to the king, why would she refuse to come? And that's if you read further down to the chapter, you found out that that's how Queen Vashti lost her crown. So a woman of value, we need to be present. I feel sometimes we get carried away by life, things happening around us are so exciting, or things happening around us are so intense, so we get carried away by things. But we should always be present, always be focused, and always have your thoughts together. I mean, if Queen Vashti had just calmed down and actually answered the call of the king, maybe we won't even have the book of Esther today, but that was not the will of God. So lesson number 1, be focused, be attentive, and be obedient. Lesson number 2, I think this was one of my favorite chapters of the entire book of Esther. So after Queen Vashti had been dethroned. Obviously the king needed a new wife, and he consulted his cohort, and they decided that okay, they should bring the most beautiful women around in the city and like keep them, groom them for a while, and then from there the king will choose a new queen. So obviously Queen Esther, then Esther, was among the few maidens that were chosen, but basically they were kept in the palace for like a long time and groomed, which brings me to my second lesson, which is God grooms you before he elevates you. As I was reading this verse, it just like that statement just came to me, because I was thinking like, imagine like, okay, they come and tell you, okay, the king wants to pick a wife, and then they bring all these girls, and then they keep you all together in like a palace, and then 1 month goes by, 3 months go by, 6 months go by, and the king has still not said anything. You begin to lose hope. You begin to be like, oh, maybe he's no longer interested, or maybe, who knows, maybe obviously, because I assume they were not like, it was not a communion or something, like they were, all the other girls were not like in communication with each other. You get like each one had their own attending servant, so on your own you'll be like, oh, maybe he has chosen someone else, that's why they haven't called me or anything since. It says the regular beauty treatment for the women lasted a year, massages with oil of myrrh for 6 months and with oil of balsam for 6 more. After that, each young woman will be taken in turn to King Xerxes. So yeah, it's just like, okay, they had to like groom them, you know, prepare them for like this new role of being the queen before they will get to meet the king after a whole year. As in, it's not to picture, it's actually like, oh my god, the whole year. So this was just the message that came to me as I was reading this verse, and it's like God grooms before he elevates you. Imagine now if like Queen Esther had just been brought to King Xerxes like from her home. Who knows, maybe she would have not found favor in the eyes of the king. She needed that 1 year to like be actually groomed, and obviously they just told us about the physical grooming. There were also other things that were involved, like in that time she spent like alone that year, obviously with her attending server. There are many things she would have learned both about the king and about like his ways and the ways of his kingdom. So God grooms you before he elevates you. That's the message. Okay, so the next lesson is from the entire chapter of Esther 3 and the ending part of Esther chapter 2, and is that avoid making rash decisions towards strangers. They may end up being closer to you than you expect. Towards the end of the chapter 2, we see how Mordecai saved the life of the king, because he found out that 2 of the king's men were plotting to kill him, and he informed the king and saved the king's life. Then chapter 3 just talks about how Haman found out that Mordecai refused to bow down to him, and then decided to plot and kill Mordecai and the entire Jews. So Haman now did not know that Mordecai had saved the life of the king. So Haman, in his anger that Mordecai refused to bow down to him, was really plotting to destroy Mordecai, but he did not know that Mordecai had already found favor in the eyes of the king. So it's always good to be careful who you like, how you deal with people, because you don't know who is who. You don't know, like someone may be closer to you than you actually expect. So I think that was like the initial inspiration that came to me when I first read this verse. This is like another one of like my really best parts of the entire book of Esther. So this is Esther 4. Basically, after Haman had put out a decree for all the Jews to be killed, Mordecai came to seek the help of Esther, as Esther had now been made the queen. And the lesson is, you are always at the right place at the right time. And I say this is one of my best parts of the book of Esther, because for me this is one of the biggest things I struggle with, and I feel like a lot of people as well. Sometimes, or a lot of times in life, we feel like we're being left behind, or like people are progressing more than us, or like we are not where we hope to be, or we're not where we want to be, and it's very difficult to like see ahead a lot of times. Like it's one of the hardest things to do. It's actually really hard for you to come to that position where you're like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, because most times it's not what it looks like. So I'm going to read this part of Esther 4 verse 14, and it says, if you keep quiet at a time like this, help will come from the heaven to the Jews, and they will be saved, but you will die, and your father's family will come to an end. Yet, who knows, maybe it was for a time like this that you were made queen. And obviously this was Mordecai talking to Esther, and he was telling her that basically if she refuses to help because she's now a queen and she feels like, oh, like she's now untouchable or she's no longer part of the masses of the Jews, that help will still come to the Jews. This was Mordecai's fate speaking. He was like, heaven will still help the Jews and they will survive, but her herself will be killed for refusing to help her people. And then he goes further to say, who knows, maybe this was the reason you were made queen in the first place, to save the Jews, which makes so much sense, you get. So basically it's like she was there at the right time. Like there was a reason why Esther was made queen, and it was to save the Jews. So at every point in time in life, even though it's very hard, it is very hard, it's always just good to accept that, okay, this is like where you're meant to be. And if you feel like you could be doing better, then you work harder. You know what I mean? But it's not a situation of where like you're beating yourself up for what you can't control. If something that is out of your control, then you just have to trust that, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. But if it's a situation where you feel like you're lacking, you should do better, then you do better. This is another beautiful part of this book of Esther. In fact, this entire book of Esther, I was reading it and I was smiling like profusely. So this is Esther 6, and this verse basically just it's so funny, like it's so funny because basically what was happening at this point is that Haman, he had sent out the decree for all Jews to be killed, and he was coming to tell the king that he would request for Mordecai to be hanged on the gallows. Meanwhile, the king was restless, and he brought like the history of what had been happening to be read to him. So they were reading it, and then they read to him how Mordecai had revealed that 2 of his men were trying to kill him. Then he asked the servants, like, how have they rewarded Mordecai for saving his life? And they're like that they've not done anything for Mordecai. Then the king, as they finished this meeting, Haman came in. Haman came in with the intention to tell the king that he would like to request for Mordecai to be hung in the gallows. Then the king asked Haman, hypothetically, like, what shall I do for a man who has proved his loyalty to me? You know, he was just talking about, like, hypothetically speaking, he didn't mention names. Haman, in his own pride, thought it was himself that the king was talking about. He now started saying that they should dress him in the finest robe, they should have him paraded around the city, everybody should clap for him. Like, you know, he was like basking, wishing, or what I say, imagining that it was him that the king would have wanted to honor like that. Then after Haman finished saying all these things, the king now told him that everything he said, he should do it for Mordecai. Which brings me to my next lesson, which is God can turn your enemy's plots to your favor. Like, Haman came with the intention to have Mordecai killed, and at the end of the day, it was what Haman said in his own mouth that was now done to Mordecai, which was all the good things that happened to Mordecai. So God can literally turn any situation around to your favor. Okay, so the next lesson I'm going to talk about is from Esther 7, and it's you have to prepare and present your requests to God with reverence and respect. So reading the book of the chapter 7 of the book of Esther is basically where Esther decided that she was going to meet the king and tell him about how the people, her people, were going to be killed, and how like he should do something about it, basically. Now I can just imagine, like, if it was like a normal person, obviously immediately, like, they had heard from Mordecai that their people were going to be killed, they obviously go straight to their husband, like, what do you mean, like, you signed a decree that you should kill my people, like, you understand? But Esther was more calm. Esther actually decided to prepare a banquet and invite the king and Haman to the banquet and present her request to the king. You need to see the graceful way she spoke to the king. She said, "If it pleases your majesty to grant my humble request, my wish is that I may live and that my people may live." Like, the king was so smitten by Esther because she was such a woman of grace and such a woman of like calm, like, oh God, she was such a woman of grace. That's just the best word I can use to describe her. She didn't panic, even though it was a situation to panic, and she was calm. She maintained decorum, she maintained her grace, she maintained her soft feminine nature the entire time, presenting her request to the king in such a graceful way that there's no way the king will even refuse her because of her manner of approach. So when you're this also relates to God, this also relates to people. Whenever you want to like ask people for things or like request for things for people, your manner of approach is very important. And also when you're praying to God, yes, we are children of God, but you also have to realize that, like God says that if human refuse to serve me, I'll raise up stones to serve me. You need God. God doesn't need you. So you should keep that in mind when you're like making requests to God. Always present your request with reverence and with respect, and you're more than likely to have it answered if you go that way. This is the second to last verse of Esther, which is Esther 8, and I got 2 lessons from there. The first one is God will not go back on his word, and second one is God will always make a way where there seems to be no way. So I'll begin with the first one. After Esther had told the king of like how her people were going to be killed, the king was like that he cannot undo his word. Like he had put his stamp, the seal of his ring, on the document Haman had presented to him, because he did not know that Haman's plans were all along selfish and hate driven. So he's like, I have already decreed with these people, put my stamp on it. As a king, it would be wrong for me to take back my word. It would, like, people will respect me less if I stamp something with my royal seal and I then take it back. Reading this, what just came to me was the part, the verse in the Bible that says, my word will not return to me void until it accomplishes that which I have sent it. So basically, it's like every single word of God is a promise to you, and you have to like cultivate that promise. You have to tell God, like, you said you will do this for me, and he's not going to go back on his word. So trust. Then the next lesson and the final lesson is God always make a way where there seems to be no way. So after the king had obviously said he has made the decree, he can't take it back, what next? The king had explained that he can't revoke the word that he has already decreed, but he then told Esther that she can write another letter to the Jews and tell them whatever she wants, and he will stamp it with his own seal. So the situation has seemed like, oh my God, what can we do? They are already going to kill the Jews. So, and the king said he can't stop it because he has already ordered it, or he has already approved it. What do we do? Suddenly the king is like, okay, since I can't revoke what I have already said, I will grant you the permission to say something else, and I will still stamp it with my seal of approval. So Esther then wrote a letter and explained everything that happened with Haman and Mordecai to the Jews, and told them to fight back. And the king approved this deal, and it was delivered to all the Jews. And then if you read further down into Esther 8 and Esther 9, you see how the Jews fought back, and they killed a lot of the people who were going to kill them. So the situation had seemed hopeless, and then suddenly God just made a way. And then the story of Esther wrapped up nicely, beautifully with a bow on it. Very beautiful book in the Bible. I highly recommend reading it on your own. These were just what was revealed to me as I was reading it, but you should read it on your own, and who knows, you may get a different message, or it will help you just understand everything I've said in this video today. So I don't want this video to be too long. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you were inspired by Queen Esther to take up some qualities that she displayed throughout her life and apply them to your own personal life. Please make sure to share this video to your friends, family, and if you read the book of Esther and you have any other thing to say, let me know in the comments, and also let me know understood like what I said here, and like if it resonated with you, just let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Until then, remain blessed, and I love you all.